All right, so we have a pretty major strike that is currently underway with the Writers Guild of America, who are going on strike in order to protest a lack of wages, benefits, and working conditions within their field. Obviously, this comes at a time where we have been shifting away from the typical sort of like cable TV packaged content towards more streaming content, which has led to an absolutely disastrous situation for the writers, for the people who actually do the labor to put on the production of a lot of these shows that end up on Netflix and Amazon Prime and Hulu and all of the rest of them, and it has been to the dramatic benefit of some of the executives who work at these companies. So here to start us off, we have Adam Conover, who obviously has worked on multiple different TV shows, YouTube shows, Netflix shows, and all of that, and he decided to go on CNN to do an interview to expose some of the sort of mainstream narratives that are pushed, not just with this kind of a strike, but whenever any strike occurs where it seems like the blame is put on the workers who are going on strike, even though they wouldn't be put in that position if it wasn't for corporate greed in these scenarios. And so he's going on CNN and he's going to basically kind of shock the CNN host when he directly calls out the CEO of the company that owns CNN in and of itself and how much money they have been making, while average people who work at these companies have been getting absolutely shafted. So let's just go ahead and watch this short little clip here.
That run this industry that say, look, times are changing. We are not making as much money as we once did. This is not the golden era of television, although some of us would argue the shows are great. What do you say to them?
So I'd point out the fact that David Zaslav, the CEO of Warner Brothers Discovery, which is, the parent company of the network I'm talking to you on right now, was paid $250 million last year, $250 million. That's about the same level as what 10,000 writers are asking him to pay all of us collectively, all right? So I would say if you're being paid $250 million, Ted Sarandos made about $50 million last year. These companies are making enormous amounts of money. Their profits are going up. It's ridiculous for them to plead poverty when the writers who are making their shows, some of them are not able to pay their rent or their mortgages. I literally know writers who have had to go on assistance because they have not been able to make their year. If you look at these companies, they're making more money than ever. It's the people who make the shows for them that are making less.
Adam Conover, thank you so much for coming on. Because you ruined everything. You may have just ruined my career, but I don't mind.
Okay, so a little bit of like a, self-jab there from the CNN anchor. I guess it's nice that she's not taking this personally, obviously, but, everything that he said there was 100% true, right? And this is sort of the issue that I have with mainstream media is before this segment that we just clicked into here, the way that they sort of set up this segment was talking about how this strike that these workers are going on is going to disrupt all of these different, the production of a bunch of different shows that people like to watch, and that's going to be terrible for people back at home who relied on these shows for entertainment or whatever the case may be, when the framing really should be 100% on some of these greedy executives at the top of some of these companies like Warner Bros. Discovery, which again, as he pointed out, their own CNN. I mean, we're talking about a CEO who's making hundreds, tens of millions of dollars just on an annual basis, which, as he pointed out there, was basically amounting to the overall amount that the tens of thousands of writers are asking for as a part of these negotiations. So just a little bit more on that. Here was with a graphic as posted by the AFL-CIO, one of the largest unions in the United States of America. I mean, you can see here, Endeavor CEO, $308 million. Okay, David Zaslav, Discovery, $250 million. Bob Iger of Disney, $45 million. And you can go on here, right? Another Disney CEO, $32 million. Rupert Murdoch of Fox, $31 million. Netflix, $41 million. Netflix co-CEO, another $40 million on top of that. Comcast CEO. So you can go down the line. And listen, the issue here at the end of the day is not that they don't have the money or that they're losing money and so they can't afford to pay these writers what they used to make in these other, formats that were going up on TV. The problem here is just that we have an unequal distribution of where the profits are going within these various companies. I mean, that's as simple as it is, and these companies don't want to actually shovel out money for some of the very basic demands. So Adam Conover also posted this on Twitter, which, you can pause and read it for yourself if you want to get into some some of the details here, but this is actually a really good tactic that I haven't seen many other unions do necessarily. Maybe it's just not as high profile, but they actually posted a list here, as you can see, of exactly what the WGA, the Writers Guild of America's proposals were to the corporations, and basically what some of the counteroffers were, or what, in this case, right, some of the non-counter offers were, where they just basically just outright reject some of the proposals, right? So, I mean, you can go and read into the details of exactly what they're asking for, what the companies are rejecting, what they're willing to give them, and you can see that their demands are not unreasonable by any stretch of the imagination. And so what is the result of this, right? So first of all, obviously, there is going to be a dramatic disruption in the production of some TV shows. Some late night hosts especially have actually been kind of based, right? I'm not usually a fan of like any of these guys. I don't really watch their shows at all in any way, shape, or form, especially with like Jimmy Kimmel and Jimmy Fallon. I just don't really like their style at all, but I think they're kind of cringe. But I actually have seen a couple of different interviews where especially Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Fallon, from what I've seen, are coming out and supporting their writers. Some of them are saying that they're going to pay their writers' salary while they're going out on strike and support them financially in order to be able to do this. They're obviously shutting down some of their productions, so that's going to be a hit. I mean, it's not just these guys, it's a bunch of other shows as well that are going to be affected by that. Now, the lesson from that is that you should realize that if these shows are having to shut down their production entirely because these writers are going on strike, well, clearly these writers are pivotal. They are key to the production of a lot of these shows. They are providing a lot of the value that allows these shows to be profitable, that allows the companies that own these shows in order to make billions and billions of dollars on an annual basis. So they deserve exactly what they're asking for, and that's the power of a union, right? The power of a union is that you have this collective bargaining with your fellow workers where, you don't have to go and try to individually ask for a raise or better benefits, which your boss can sort of just scoff at and laugh you out of the room. You can engage in legally protected collective bargaining in order to make demands for better benefits, better wages, better working conditions, and all of that as an entire unit instead of having to do it on a one-by-one basis. And that gives you significantly more leverage, significantly more legal protections, even though we don't have nearly enough protections for workers and unions in this country. But this is what you get, right? I mean, you get that financial protection, right? You have the ability to go on strike, to basically hold them hostage until they meet some of your demands. At least you have some sort of a negotiation process, and then that leads to better results, not just for the workers within the Writers Guild, but workers across the entire country, right? This is the lifting of all boats, right? So another aspect of this that I saw floating around here is pointed out by Zach Bornstein, which just kind of gets to the root of like how much of this is actually just about control instead of just about like the actual monetary amount of what these writers are asking for. So he says here, I'm no economist, but since the WGA went on strike yesterday, the studios in total have lost almost $10 billion in value, enough to fund every ask the writers made for 25 years. Okay, so that's what we're dealing with here. I mean, it's just absurd levels of greed. They can afford to pay for this, right? In fact, they're losing more money than they otherwise would have if they had just met the initial demands of the WGA. Okay, so that's what this boils down to, right? You have a bunch of greedy executives, a bunch of greedy companies. You have the structure of capitalism that demands massive increases in shareholder value year on year on year, which means diminishing returns for the average workers who are putting in the grueling hours in order to make these companies as valuable and profitable as they are. And so at the end of the day, again, the main lesson that I'm taking away from this is just this is why you should join a union. This is why we should be pushing aggressively as we can in order to promote unions in the United States. I mean, this is the kind of labor power that is actually able to achieve material benefits for average people within this country. Okay, you're never going to get it by just hoping that your CEO or your boss is just going to be a good guy and improve your conditions. That's never going to happen. You can't rely on politicians to pass things like increases in the minimum wage, increases in worker protections or safety standards. If anything, they're pushing in the opposite direction of that. How many different conservative states around the country have been literally pushing for decreasing the age that you're allowed to be forced to work a full-time job down into 12, 13-year-olds that are going to be working in dangerous positions around the United States. So worker protection, worker benefits, workers' wages, that is only going to be able to be achieved in a positive direction through collective bargaining, through unions. And so I am 100% standing in solidarity with these workers, and I hope they achieve every single goal that they are setting out and striking for right now.
Everyone is saying good politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying